All right, we're here live, episode 7. It took a little extra time, and we've transitioned to a different place now.
Is this really different though?
I think it's pretty good transition.
But does it feel different?
It was kind of the place I wanted to be. Let's put it that way. And we started this thing a little prematurely, and we've had great success. So. It's good to be in a location where I know every week it's going to be without having to move things around. So to give a little background, we've transitioned to my office space that we originally started at my house. And every podcast we did, we had to tear down and set back up. Well, I didn't, but the team did. So
do you remember when we first started talking about this? First, it was we were going to do it in this room. In the office. Then we were going to build a spot in back, and then we were going to enclose a whole spot in back, and then we got a figure on how much it was going to cost. We were like, no way.
So what we learned about this podcast, the probably first learning curve was do not build a podcast during COVID times.
No, because the price is going to be triple. like the price just to put in like a wall and like a ceiling and a couple other things was what it should cost to build like a small dwelling.
Yeah, we could have built a structure for that.
For sure. We could have built a structure. We could have put in concrete floor. We could have ran electric for all that they wanted to do to put do a little bit of work back there.
Yeah, so I have a space that I've utilized first for the clothing. As a lot of you guys know that follow me for quite some time, I had a clothing business that I was selling T-shirts out of my garage. And it's funny because Larry was just here, who used to be my personal assistant, and he's the one that kind of helped me start the whole Cutler Athletics branding and Swole Monkey and all that, which you see actually behind you a little bit. But we started in the garage. I always have this kind of joke about, I was making $1 million a year selling T-shirts out of my garage when no one else was. This is prior to any clothing brand that launched out that you see on the circuit today. And I used to pack and ship the orders. I had friends over helping me, and I eventually needed to switch that because, I started to kind of outgrow my garage. So I got a place that I actually thought about doing retail at for a while, and then we talked about doing a gym, and and then I was housing, it's basically my my Cutler Nutrition, spot where I was doing a lot of business out of, and I had, pallet racks in here and in the back in the smaller warehouse, and then that transitioned to have a bigger warehouse out in Pennsylvania. So now we needed to utilize the space, and it was one of those suggestions that, hey, why don't we set up a studio here?
And since our original conversations, think of how much time we spent looking and doing this and this and this and this and filming at your house, and now it's full circle right back to where we started. Yeah. We could have just started it right here. But for whatever reason, we took the long way.
But it's a learning process. That's the amazing thing is, like, you think you have all the necessities, and then we slowly keep adding.
I don't like, I know with a lot of things in life, people just look for professionals immediately. Like, go pay this guy to do this or go hire this person. I always want to understand what's going on. And by us doing it this way, we've slowly learned on our own how to build a studio up, how to tear it down. Well, I learned how to tear it down, and the little different pieces that we needed to order. And now here we are.
Yeah. And we learned definitely out of the gate also not to use a Mac,
MacBook Air for the first two.
Yeah,
so we look like Max Headroom with the.
Yeah. It was a little delayed, as some of you guys that have followed us on YouTube, not necessarily for our listeners.
Yeah.
But for our viewers, you noticed that it was a little slow, and that was the issue in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we moved up. You bought a laptop. We went over it. You wouldn't believe I was actually bringing the computers in to get a bigger drive in there. And it was all sent the wrong one, and then it was just
because you have two desktops at home.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, well, let's upgrade the RAM on this one. So we look it up and we order the RAM. But then for some reason, you decided to take the other one in, and we sent the RAM to them, and they're like, this is the wrong RAM. And I'm like, I ordered the right one. Yeah. You're like, oh, we decided to put this computer here. So then we ordered that, and we sent the RAM back, and then I think we bought more RAM for that
We
other
bought
computer,
another one, which
and they're
was-
like, you can't upgrade the RAM on this one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go get a new MacBook Pro, and we're calling it a day.
So for you guys out there that are looking to start a podcast, which I think it's awesome. I think anyone at any level, and like, you know, we've built up obviously a lot of following now out of the gate, but it's definitely not as fast as, you know, JTV, YouTube that I've been doing since 2008, and you know, we've just reached 500,000 subscribers.
How does that? Just think about that. How does that make you like? You're kind of a YouTuber now.
No, you know what though? We started with like, I want to say I had like 50,000 when we started utilizing it with Dave, and all the other, you know, places he was doing videos, they disappeared. And, you know, I said, why don't you just work the J channel, the J Cutler TV channel? And we started featuring, you know, myself on there. And then of course that transitioned to having other people on. And now we've kind of migrated back to doing mostly my content, which we'll feature some collabs with other people, but it was a big milestone for us to reach 500. I mean, 100,000 was big. And then, you know, we kind of crept as we get up past 400,000. It seems like it slowed down, because I remember we would talk about it and we were getting thousands of subscribers
2,000 or 3,000 a day. Yeah.
And it's just about consistent content. And honestly, I kind of fell off a little bit because of, you know, traveling and COVID and other things. I wasn't in the mood to shoot. And, you know, these days, you know, sometimes I think, you know, my life is busy and, you know, I don't know if this is the greatest content to shoot, but what I'm learning is that every move I make, it seems to be something that people want to see on film. And, you know, we always kind of talk about suggestions on, you know, what people would like to see. And we think you know, kind of the crazy
Shock
value videos seem to do the best, which I don't know if I'm necessarily a shock value guy.
No, I don't think you are. Like, you don't do like crazy eating challenge.
Yeah, so if it's like I ordered the whole menu at Cheesecake Factory, or I got kicked out of Planet Fitness, which everyone did. I'm not getting kicked out of any gyms. You know, I don't go in and cause havoc with a lot of places. But what is unique is that we travel to a lot of different places, and we talked about on some of these episodes, we fall into some funny situations. But what I'm learning is to have a camera with me at all times, because document every movement, especially the trips. And that's something definitely, once we get through all this time, I think we're going to be able to kind of get on track with doing.
Yeah. I think if you have a camera that's just always around, and sometimes it's just the small B-roll stuff that people wouldn't, you know, that you wouldn't think to film, sometimes some crazy magic comes from those just random spots.
And I always talk about me being an introvert and having to learn to, you know, be a people person and be in front of a camera and you know, be someone that speaks, even when a lot of times, you know, I like to be kind of quiet. So you have to learn how to, you know, be that person. And, you know, I guess you would call me a YouTuber or influencer.
You're a YouTuber now. Yeah.
You know, what makes an influencer? That's my question.
That's a long answer.
Because I think I've transitioned from, you know, I sometimes people call me a fitness influencer instead of like a, you know, because, you know, the accolades aren't the only thing people recognize you for now. I
think a lot of times when I think of just a fitness influencer, is just somebody who doesn't, and I could be wrong for thinking this way, who doesn't have the hardware, they don't have the accolades, they don't have the world titles, they don't have the long resume, but something about them influences, you know, the masses. Like, I'll use like a Mike Rashid, for example. He's not Mr. Olympia. He doesn't have the big world titles, but he has found an angle. He's found a void that was missing from the people with the titles, and he went at it hard, and he's had great success with that. So I look at that as kind of more of an influencer, to where you had the world titles, you had the Olympias, the Arnolds, you had the resume, and then you started, you know, because of that resume, you influence people just from that.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I look back at the early videos, and I think that is early social media. Like, that was an outlet.
We were just cleaning out the back of the warehouse the other day, and we came across box after box after box after box of just DVDs.
You were supposed to pull those videos
I know,
out.
I was, forgot. How many DVDs have you done?
So I started in 99, and I think I launched about 6 or 7 total. But I did one in 99. I finished it in 2000. I did one in 2003 was the next one. I did 2004. Then I did 2005 leading into 2006 Olympia. And then I did the 2006 to 7 for the second title. And then I launched All Access, which was documenting 2008, which I lost. And then I did Undisputed, which was 2009. And then I did My House in between a little bit, just as a
So when you did those, like what was the process? You know, you hire somebody to produce the whole DVD, like you pay X amount per DVD.
It's a really good question, because there was this guy Mitsuru Kabi at the time, and he was an Asian guy that, you know, he was a fan, he was a competitor. And he came up with this concept as like he wanted to be a filmmaker or whatever. So he had a deal with us. He would shoot, you know, the top, you know, the most popular guys.
You had the Battle for the Olympia.
Yeah, he did the Battle for the Olympia. So, you know, that was kind of the same kind of filming style. But what he would do is he would, you know, film the guys and basically cover all the costs. He would come to you and shoot whatever 5-6 days, whatever each body part, he would come and spend time for each body part. So it was like he came out, let's say you trained 5 or 6 different body parts, it'd be 5 or 6 days, and he would separate those, or he'd stay 2 days in a row, but never would he stay like the whole week and shoot a DVD. Sometimes maybe for Ronnie Coleman, but for me, he kind of migrated back and forth. I would take a break, I would shoot 2 episodes, 2 body parts, and then he would come back the next week, and we'd get lifestyle in between and show the cars and the, you know, come in my house and the dogs and the food, and compile it all together for like 7 hours of footage. He would edit it down, take a few months, and then when we release it, I would give him rights to sell certain places, and then he would allow me to sell like direct. So I would get ad space in the magazines. Remember, this is before the internet. So I would have an ad space, and I would actually market that video through Flex Magazine or Muscular Development, and you know, that's how it started.
What would you sell? Like how many?
I'd lost count, but I know when I got popular, not necessarily Cut Above, which was my first, but New and Improved and Beyond was the second one. The third one was Ripped to Shreds. And the fourth one was One Step Closer. And then the fifth one was J to Z. I remember, I mean, I know one DVD I sold $250,000 worth the first week that I released it.
Wow.
I mean, they're $40 a piece.
Yeah, and you had to plan how many you'd buy, because you have to press them up and get
basically my cost was the cost of the packaging. I didn't have to pay Mitsuru because I gave him some rights. So I mean, I think I would pay, you know, $2 and change for the DVD itself with the printing and everything. So the margins were there, and we would sign copies. We'd send them all over the world.
Yeah,
and that's how I kind of started, you know, the early social media. And I have to give credit to that, because I let people in my life. That's one thing. If someone's listening or watching this podcast and want to be something in fitness, I would say that you have to let people in your life in order to be relatable. Does that make sense?
of course.
I mean, like,
Because then they feel like they know.
And doing those food runs or going to the supermarkets, how I prep my food, what kind of foods I ate, you know, hanging out with the dogs, your spouse, you know, Carrie was in a lot of the videos, the cars I drove, the nature of which I took the weights on and off the equipment. It was so important for people to see.
Yeah.
And how I stacked the plates and every rep motion. Remember, that's the first time people got to see that.
Because you can't see movements in a magazine.
Magazines don't come alive, and it was very few and far between. If something was on about bodybuilding on ESPN2 or American Muscle Magazine, it was very limited. You had to, like, I remember looking at the TV guide and wondering, okay, when is this coming up? And used to mark the calendar as like, oh, I'm going to see American Muscle, and they would showcase some of the shows in California. That's why it was everyone's dream to move to California. Maybe that's why I still have that heart for California, you know, living in Vegas, and, you know, I still talk about going out there all the time.
Do you have all your DVDs online where people can stream them?
I have them on JTV, most of them.
I remember this is about 5 years ago when I went into the back end of JTV, and I was going through and finding how many people had ripped it and posted online. And
yeah, you helped me with that.
Oh my God. I bet you I spent 2 months, 5-6 times a day, because it's a long process. You can't just click it and delete it. You have to click it, report it, and then you have to fill out this whole thing. Who owns the rights to this? Their contact information, their this. It was a big process, and then you'd have to submit it, and then they would sometimes take 3 or 4 or 5 days, even a week, to come back and say, we've removed this. Yes, you own the rights. And then once you've done it enough, they started doing it within like 48 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you counted how many DVDs I have in the back warehouse, it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah. They're just stocked up there. I wish there was a way we could do something with them.
Well, I mean, we could give them out to people. I'm sure, I could do it with orders or whatever.
Do people
else,
still have DVD players?
You're absolutely. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
When they just came, the guys next door do audio.
Yeah.
And they just came to my house and replaced all my, updated my system, because it was older. And they're like, "Do you really want to keep this DVD player?" I had a Blu-ray player, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I can't remember the last time. And I have DVDs in my theater behind the door.
You have random DVDs back here, too.
Yeah.
We were looking like
I
Matrix
think there were porns and stuff. Yeah.
There was. You had porn in there. You had the Matrix. You had video games. I'm like, why don't we throw this out? You're like, no, keep it there. I'm like,
I had Madden.
Your porn was on a VHS. Can you even buy a VHS player anymore? Who the hell? Who has? I don't even.
It's like having an 8-track,
A Betamax.
Yeah, everything used to be on cassettes. I mean, we talked about that. I mean, it's just how the transition is just crazy, man. And
I still think you need to do a modern a documentary, the next one, and just put it on Netflix. We'll see what it does there.
Yeah, I think going back to Mass and going to see my family where I grew up and interviewing my brothers and asking them what it was like to see me transition and get there into, my dad actually did that with All Access. They interviewed my dad and they're like, what are you, are you proud of your son? And my dad fired back, he was a Spitfire, my dad. And he's like, I'm proud of all my sons.
Yeah.
He didn't want to single me out, because all my brothers, I got 3 other brothers and, he was all proud of them. So for him, it was, the crazy background of growing up. And I'd like you to see where I grew up sometime because it was it's very humble beginnings. No one ever leaves. My goal was to become a police officer probably in that town. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of guys become firefighters. Most guys start construction businesses. My brother owns a concrete business. So, for us, we had great success in the town and surrounding and the reputation's strong, but it's just the East Coast just didn't fit my goals of bodybuilding. Why do people want to migrate west? Mm-hmm. The weather, right?
Of course.
I mean, it seemed like everything was.
I prefer small towns. I've lived in the biggest cities in the world and all over the world.
I know, but why are you in Las Vegas then?
It's a good question. I'll be here for a certain amount of time, and I will eventually go back to a small place in the mountains and just live a quiet life.
Because Las Vegas, I feel, is it's like a crazy city, man.
It is and it isn't. Like everyone thinks of Las Vegas and they always think of the casinos, the nightclubs and all that, but that's over there. Like I've been to the Strip one time since
right
I've
next
been
to
here.
Raider Stadium here.
That's not what draws me here. If outside of that area where the Strip is, it's like living in a suburb here.
Yeah.
Just think of it like this. Remove the casinos and like the high rises there. Is there any other 5-story buildings in town that aren't a casino or a hotel or some type of condo?
Yeah, I mean they're out. Yeah, out.
It's suburbs. Everything is suburbs. So Vegas is a little different than your typical large city, but I still prefer the smaller towns.
But do you still wake up and think like, wow, I live in Vegas?
Maybe in the beginning.
I still, to this day, 20 years later, still are excited that at my fingertips, and don't judge me because I don't necessarily go do all this, but I can have do anything I want, eat at any restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, and entertainment, you know, sporting events, shows.
Yeah.
It makes it so easy if you want to entertain someone or people come to town. Like, there's just
the top amenities in the world are here. They're at your fingertips.
And we talk about the Olympia, and you know, we're going to talk about the Arnold Classic coming up here during this episode. But like, this is ideal for Olympia. It's ideal for shows. And
someone has a question about that. One of our questions we're going to ask about the Olympia.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You know, we'll get to that down the road here.
Yeah, so, you know, for the go back to the DVD stuff, a lot of my greatest memories come from the DVDs, like putting them together.
What stands out? Is there something that stands out?
The dogs. I actually sat and watched. I watched J to Z the other day, and I was you know, I currently live in, you know, my dream home. And it was before I put my pool in the backyard, and you know, Scrappy, Trace, and Bodie were in the backyard, and it was before I put that in, and I was like, man, I was reflecting back, and I was looking at how big I was, and walking into Gold's Venice, I was using 170-pound dumbbells, and the climb up was just, it's unimaginable when you start from like where I came from, and you make it to the top. And I was watching, you know, building that house and working with the designer was actually in that video. And I was just so excited to have everything that I ever dreamed of having. Yep. And I was a world champion at the same time. And I watched myself cook the food over and over, and I watched how I trained, and I watched how programmed I was. And what I miss a little bit is the structure of that. And I think anyone that was on the top and lived that bodybuilding lifestyle will tell you that the structure was the most beneficial thing, like to eat, sleep, train, cut yourself from a lot of activities to be successful and to have it pay off. Because remember, I suffered in the beginning not so much great success, and that transitioned into being, you know, second best, and then, you know, winning Arnold Classics, and then becoming the best bodybuilder in the world. And I can tell you that probably still one of the greatest moments of my life was winning that Olympia the first time. Because everything flashes in front of you, and you're just like, wow, I actually won this thing. And
you hit the pinnacle.
Yeah. And, you know, and like, you think that you're popular and you think that you're successful, and then you win that title, and it just catapults you to the stratosphere of like beyond what you could ever imagine. And everywhere I went, and you were there, you know, you were booking events for me back then, and, you know, it was just so easy. Right. And
it still is.
It's still, but when you're Mr. Olympia, like, I try to think about how Rami is now. Like, when he walks everywhere, like, he is so in demand. So if there was still guest posing these days, I didn't have one free weekend.
Zero.
Not one, because I was booked to actually get on stage and pose, and that was exciting because it kept me motivated to train harder and stay in great shape. And that's what, you know, made me train and do these DVDs. You know, I was excited to show, and I challenged Ronnie Coleman indirectly with the DVDs every year because
he had them too.
He was going back and forth. So we released videos, and the funny thing is Mitchell would shoot his, and then he'd shoot mine, or vice versa. So he would report to me because there was no social. Yeah. So I'm like, how's Ronnie looking? You know, because I'd see him at a few guest spots, and then we'd have a break for like 3 months or whatever that I did not see him. We weren't booked at every single event together, but I was able to hear the reports, and that was exciting for me. Like, that suspense was a little better. And today I think it's kind of ruined with social media.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about like what makes someone great on social media. Like, I know we talked about it in the last episode, but Chris Bumstead, I look at his engagement and look what he's putting out there, look how he's training. And I don't know if there's anyone doing it better right now in that realm from the bodybuilding side.
From the bodybuilding side, just from the outside looking in, and I know some people probably get upset when I say this, he's the most valuable active competitor right now. Because he has the engagement. He knows how to put stuff up that the fans want to see. He knows how to put stuff up that the consumer wants to see. There's a difference between someone who's just a fan and looks.
Okay,
and
but he's a
who
classic
buys.
physique
Yes.
Olympia. So are you saying in the whole?
I'm saying all around.
Okay, so this even open.
Open and everything. Because
men's
he
physique,
hits
everything.
all the points. And when you go look at some of the marketing he puts up, look at the engagement. People interact with him, you know, and you can just, he's hitting all the right points. His fan base is growing really fast. You go look at how many likes he gets on stuff, but you go look at the comments, and they're not fake comments like some people have. People are asking, they're commenting, and they're real profiles. So he's doing it right. He's in my opinion, just from someone who looks at talent and has to evaluate talent.
Can you imagine if there was appearances available now?
There are, but if he would have been doing what he's doing now 10 years ago, he would have been booked just as much as you were.
Yeah.
He would have, for sure. And you can, and look, and that's not, I'm not like downing anyone else.
I wish
that's
I
out
had
there.
that. I wish I had the opportunity that I have today back then.
Oh, God, you would have made a fortune. You would have made 10 times the money you make now, because back then you didn't have access to just sell stuff to people. You know, if somebody wanted to buy from you back then, they had to go out of their way.
Yeah, they had to either show up.
They'd either have to fill something out, a credit card, mail you a check. It wasn't as simple as push 2 buttons and it's on its way to your house.
I mean, they did have a website though. But
think about later on. Remember how fun it was to buy something on a website even 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you can just look on it and go, oh, I got Apple Pay, I got Amazon Pay, I got this. You push 2-3 buttons in it, and it's on its way to your house. Yeah. To where back then, like I said, someone either mailed you a check. Even though you had a website, it was still a process.
Well, you had to go to the website. Now you can just click. You're breezing through, sitting
social media, swipe up,
sitting
boom,
on the
there.
toilet. Because honestly, I read social media the most when I sit on the toilet.
I think we need to do a meme for you like that.
Well, is it true? I mean, most people.
I think a lot of people do.
I mean, do you? I mean,
I'm on social media throughout the day, always.
So you don't want to admit that when you're on the toilet.
I said always. I didn't say I didn't do. I didn't say I didn't do it on the toilet, but you said that's when I mostly do it. So let me ask you this: when you're going to go to the bathroom, do you look for your phone first?
Always.
I do too. Yeah. There's times where I'm like, shit, man, I gotta go, and I'm like, where's my phone? And I'm running around the house.
Isn't it amazing, bro? Like we sit on these planes, and you text me. Every time, it never fails, bro. You get on these United flights, and you're like $15 for this damn Wi-Fi. But I'm like, dude, you're buying it, because you're not going to sit there and meditate for 4 hours.
I'm not going to sleep.
But can you imagine? We used to sit on the planes and fly overseas, and what did we do besides watch movies?
You'd watch whatever movie was on repeat, or I used to pull that magazine out, and I would read every page in that magazine.
Did you never do the crossword puzzles on the plane?
No, because some asshole always did it before me, and they did it wrong, and I couldn't do it. But I used to look through and be like, oh, Sky Mall, and I'd look through, oh, shit, I should buy this.
But you know what? I would actually, these people would fill out the rest of they would fill out the whole everything in the magazine, and I would actually read it to say, okay, let me see if I would have got this right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to remember.
It's hard because you flew overseas a lot, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think I started in the early 2000s, and I don't remember. I think I remember the first time I went on a plane that had a TV. It was called Song Airlines.
I remember that.
Song was launched by Delta. It was a subsidiary where they had like 5 planes, and when you got on, they had TVs in the middle, and each seat had TVs.
Yes.
I was like, holy shit!
I used to sit on the planes, and everyone watched the TV screen in the middle aisle.
It would be the glass old.
Yes,
TV.
It would be like every like 10 feet there'd be a TV, so people could watch it.
And it would suck because if you were in the wrong,
you don't remember this. I know.
Yeah, but we're not that old. or you'd get in the wrong seat and you'd be like, oh shit, I can't see it here, and your neck would be cranked. You're like, oh, they're playing Home Alone, I got to watch this. And then you had to get those crappy headphones, and they would break or they wouldn't work. And unless you got business overseas, then you had nice like noise canceling headphones and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. I sleep on these flights. I fall right asleep. But
yeah, you know what? Every time you're like, I need to get in first class, I need to be in this seat. And I'm like, what for? As soon as the plane takes off, 3.5 seconds later, your chin is in your chest and you're done.
I know.
So why spend all this money on a seat? You're not going to enjoy it anyways.
Yeah. So, these appearances, like, man, I mean, we've done a ton, and I look at these guys today and I'm like, man, if I had this social media back then, it would have been crazy. You don't have to
go. But here's another thing,
because we created our own. Our own. Here's
another thing, too. You know how when someone wins Mr. Olympia or any big show and they don't look as good the next year, and people always expect them to get better.
Yeah.
Well, if you're traveling every week, you're not sleeping right, you're not training like you normally do, you're not getting the food down, and if you are, you're eating whatever's on the road. If you're on the road 40 weeks out of the year, how can you get better? Like, touch on that, like where you won the Olympia, obviously. At one point you had lost it, or in 2007 it wasn't your best showing. But that whole year, it wasn't like years in the past where you could just say, hey man, I'm going to be at home for the next 6 months and I can just put on 20 pounds of muscle.
No, I think there was a few things that made it different for me, but definitely being booked every week, it was taxing.
Yeah.
And the expectations are always that you're going to come in better. And, you try to repeat and do everything the same way. But truthfully, I think, really sitting back after a number of years off the stage and, separating myself as being that Mr. Olympia, I just wonder if the motivation was there. It is always that talk of, like, the guy that has the greatest success and makes a ton of money and, wins, is he hungry again to win it over and over? And some guys, like, they get hungrier. But I feel like because Ronnie was kind of coming to the end and I wasn't sure how to come in, there was a little confusion on that. Like, I didn't know if I needed to come in as big or, I wasn't really necessarily chasing the beast anymore. And I knew he wasn't going to be able to beat me again. So I think I put that in my mind. And you're right. I traveled overseas, which I hadn't done for a while. And, I got a few guest spots. And then when it came time to buckle down, it was just really difficult to zone in because of, the travel. I was exhausted still. So when June hit, I find myself like, okay, it took me rhythm to get into July. And then I only really had August and part of September before I had to really dial down and compete. And I just felt it was too much pressure for me.
And some of these guys now, some of these pros now will never understand what that's like, where we all know what it's like to get on a plane and fly coast to coast. Your body gets, your timing gets thrown off and you don't get good sleep. But imagine, and I'm saying this for some of these other people that are listening, imagine you live in Vegas and you fly to New York and you do a guest post and you come home. The next week you're in Miami, then you come home. Next week you're in Toronto, then you come home. Next week you go to Germany, then you come home. Next week you're in Seattle, you come home. Next week Chicago, come home. Next week you're in Dubai, come home. And you do this for 40 weeks. It affects you. It does.
Yeah, because it's impossible to get the food. And we talk about we talked about the flights. Eating the cold food, it gets old. So you just start like getting a little lazy with that. Mm-hmm. You definitely can't train full capacity when you're on the road. Otherwise you'll get injured. Yeah. So, you're not going in the gym and rowing, 365 and deadlifting 500 pounds like you would have been back in Vegas. And listen, you run from what made you. And that's the hardest part. I mean, I look back like my best training years. If you asked me when I felt like I was in the best rhythm, was definitely like 2000, 2001, 2002. And then all the guest appearances started like after 2002, after I almost won the Olympia in 2001, I started traveling a bit and I sat out 2002. So I didn't compete, which allowed me to have more of an off season. Then once 2003, I started competing in double shows, Arnold and Olympia every year.
And then Cheru afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it got taxing. It got too taxing on me. And, I was always having trouble dialing in that last week because I was a guy that dropped a lot of water. I was a huge drinker. I drank a lot of water.
When you're flying that much.
Yeah, I was and I lived in Vegas. I mean, you have to stay super hydrated. So I'm not kidding. I would drink, 2.5 gallons of fluid a day, mostly water and whatever, Crystal Light or whatever. And that was necessary. So what I learned, and the hardest part for me was, when I worked with Chris Aceto and Hani, for my preparations, I would really cut the water at the end. And to this day, I question if that was the best scenario for me.
What do you mean?
Because I lose so much weight at the end. Because when you drink 2.5 gallons, it's really hard to cut your water down to very minimal.
Yeah.
In order to get dry. And I felt like sometimes, even when I wasn't in the best shape, I was still drastically cutting that water, but you have to taper that water down. You can't just cut the water from 2.5 gallons and go to 0. You understand? Yep. So you have to slowly taper it down. And I think for me, it was trying to manipulate the water where, I was afraid to drink because I was afraid to hold water. And obviously to shuttle carbohydrates, you have to have some fluids in there. You can't just go 0 water. And I would tend to drink 0 water a lot of times. Even though Chris would say, take sips, I would always be afraid to do that.
How much weight would you lose that last week?
15, 20 pounds.
I always remember that. You'd be in the 290s, and then you'd still be in the upper 280s, even like a week and a half out.
Oh, it's crazy. I was full, and then but with the condition, I don't know if the condition, I always could have been better. I mean, 2009, people remember me for that. 2001, I went from 290 to 260 in like 10 days.
Just from cutting water.
Yeah. And that's just crazy. But, today we have all these different water additives and different types of water, right? We talked about like what was the best water to drink. I'm drinking, I drink, which is someone that sends me water here.
Mm-hmm. I think it's reverse osmosis with vitamins.
Yeah. So, and in Vegas, you can't drink the water. I have reverse osmosis in my house because there's hard water.
I'd always listen to coaches say they want people to drink spring water or this. And I've always just thought, if you're going to drink water and you want nothing in it, you should just drink distilled water. Well, because that's what they give babies and infants.
It's kind of funny. We used to talk about, I know like natural bodybuilders tend to drink distilled water because there's no sodium or...
There's nothing in it. It comes from steam.
And they say you need that little bit of sodium in order to stay...
Yeah, but wouldn't you get some type of sodium from just the stuff
I would think so, yeah.
That you're eating throughout the day? You're getting a little bit. But just distilled water is water that's boiled, and they catch the steam, and then it comes on the other side. So it's just H2O. There's nothing in it. There's no minerals. There's no sediments. There's no calcium. There's no anything in it. It's just pure plain water. And I don't know why more people don't do that.
What water tastes the best?
To me, I like distilled water, but I drank it for many years. Yeah.
Still to this day.
Yes. And also,
do you have a tap at your house that you can drink water from?
I could. Yeah, I don't, because you can. When you see that white sediment that goes around, that's calcium. That's where you get your kidneys.
Yeah, it's really hard water in Las Vegas. And
you can get a water refiner, and that can pull the hardness out.
Cost me $5,000 to do my water softener in my house.
But you still don't want to drink that. You can get that done where it either uses potassium chloride or sodium chloride, and it pulls all the hardness, it pulls everything out of the water. It'll get it about 99%. And then your reverse osmosis takes it a step further, that's completely fine to drink. But I still think that distilled water would be the best, especially if you know everything that's in your food, your diet, your this. Why would you not have exactly what you know is in the water? I think I remember reading something years ago that Dorian Yates said once he started dieting, he drank distilled water. I remember reading that years ago somewhere. He said distilled water. Remember that?
I wasn't a guy that carried the water jug around like in the gym all the time, but I drank. They say you're supposed to drink in between your meals, but I would probably drink half a gallon with every meal that I drank. So if I had 6 meals a day, I would drink half a gallon each meal.
Did you drink other things back then too, soda or coffee?
I would drink sugar-free Kool-Aid or Crystal Light Tang. You remember my Tang stuff, right? Yeah. Sugar-free Tang. Everything was sugar-free, and I used to drink abundance of it. And I don't think a lot of soda, bro. I for some reason now I like a lot of soda water or Perrier type water. I drink more of that than I do, regular water. And honestly,
no, I don't drink enough. Just regular water. I know I don't.
How much you think you need to drink in Vegas? If you were suggestive to everyone listening to this podcast, I think everyone should drink 1 gallon of water a day.
I know there's days I do, but for the most part I don't.
Depends on the activity, but definitely.
I get the sugar-free, whatever little sticks you can put inside it. But I still drink a lot of. I drink too much caffeine.
What do you think of energy drinks?
I drink one. Sometimes I drink 2 a day. I like soda, and I don't like sugar. And it's a lot easier to get energy drinks nowadays, it seems, than anything else. Everywhere you go, there's 50 different types.
What do you think about this energy drink craze?
I don't know. I don't think it's good. And the reason for that, I think people are consuming, and I'm guilty of this myself, we're consuming too much caffeine. And before, where, you could drink a cup of coffee and you were good for the day, and maybe you'd have one or half the day. Now people, wake up, they drink 2 coffees at home, then they get a Starbucks, and then they have an energy drink, and then they do a pre-workout, and then they have another coffee, and you look at it, you're like, dude, you're consuming 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day.
It's not
good for your heart. And I'm guilty of it. There's days where I've drank so much caffeine where you can just feel yourself shaking.
Well, I think, water's supposed to be a great recovery, and I used to do a lot of saunas when I was bodybuilding for recovery for lactic acid. I would flush it through. So every day I would train, I would finish with 20 minutes of sauna at the gym. And that's a thing that helped my metabolism also. So do
you think it burns fat?
I think it does. I think it helps. Burns fat. One thing I want to make clear is that I don't think anything burns fat. Things increase metabolism, which in turn
can burn fat.
Yes. Cardio, yes, it helps your metabolism burn fat.
Yes.
I think that saunas, yes, infrareds, all that stuff. They talk about cryotherapy and all these things now for recovery. And I think, hot, cold baths or whatever. There's so many things to recovery that I never even knew about back then. Deep tissue massage helps with recovery, okay? But I also think it helped burn fat, because I think when I would get that crazy, muscular release, whether someone was dragging their elbows or whatever, through those, through my skin, against the muscle, it would help stimulate that fat that would be lying there and help with blood flow. Blood flow is going to increase. Blood flow to that area is going to help nutrients and continue the body to burn, right? So it's all about metabolism. So I think that's what the most important thing about recovery is now, is keeping the metabolism to repair the body, because the growing and the repair is done outside the gym, not while you're in the gym, right? So that's why the water is important, the food is important, but also the sleep and the other extra things that you do. We actually, tonight, I mentioned this to you, I think last week, we ordered an infrared sauna for the house. So I'm going to go ahead and get that.
What's the difference between that and a regular sauna?
Well, I think it works with a red light. And when they talk about red light therapy and how, I mean, it's really good for increasing metabolism, but it also is repairing on the body.
In shape.
Yeah, so you can come sit in the, you'll be able to come sit in the infrared.
How long, just sitting for 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes or.
This is just random. When I played basketball in high school, I remember how sore my legs were. And I bought Dennis Rodman's book. And I remember in his book.
What was his book's name?
As Bad as I Want to Be. And I think I was a junior in high school. And in his book, there was a part where he talked about when his legs were sore, he would go in the shower and he would turn the water as hot as it can go for 30 seconds. And then as cold as it can go for 30 seconds, and go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And it would get rid of that buildup in your acetic acid. And I thought it was kind of goofy, but then I tried it and it actually worked. You're not as crazy sore. I don't know how it does what it does, but that hot, cold helps.
Is that what you used to do, J-Mac, or?
All of it. Styrofoam cups, and they rub it up and down my leg. I feel it, freeze it, rub it up and down my legs.
So
I mean, look, Brad,
our producer's 6'9", 6'8".
He can lie. So he'll just tell people.
I always say 6'7", and you get upset. So
just say you're 6'10".
I try to exaggerate a little bit. He's 7'1".
When I was, Brian Shaw always does that. He has two, hot tub. He has a hot tub and a cold tub, and he jumps in the cold tub for X amount of minutes. Then he gets into the hot side.
Dude, I did cryo a couple of times, man.
Do you like it?
I hated it.
Why?
I don't know. It didn't do that much for me. I mean, listen, I didn't do it while I was training. I wasn't a bodybuilder anymore.
You didn't do this when you were full time.
No, because it didn't exist. Cryotherapy didn't exist. This is all new wave stuff. It's just like the red light therapy, and I just did the sauna that was at Crunch Fitness, and that's really, and then the Gold's gyms. I used to sit in there. I would crank that thing up, and I would sweat like crazy, and it helped me push the water too. But that's why I was talking about the water. You got to stay super hydrated after.
I'm surprised you never put it like all these years. You haven't just put an actual sauna in your house.
I know, it's a shocker, right? I had a tanning booth. I had treadmills.
You still have a tanning? Isn't it still there?
Yeah, but I haven't used it in like 6 years.
You have a tanning, but
Hex Tanning used to sponsor me.
The one thing that you could actually use, you don't have. The sauna, just a regular sauna.
I know.
Well, maybe you need to do that too.
So what I'm going to do is the sauna is going to go in over in my workout section. I think I'm going to take the tanning booth out, and I'm going to put my Tesla charger in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you going to talk about this new? You've been on like a purchase frenzy. Like, what did you start making money or something? You're like buying all kinds of stuff and cars.
Since our last episode, you kind of gave me a hard time about my best gas mileage vehicle was the Suburban.
Yeah, just think of.
So you forced me to
go to the exact opposite way.
I went out and bought a diesel Suburban, okay, which is going to have more fuel efficiency.
Yeah, and
I bought a Tesla.
Just think of the reality you live in, that you were excited about a Suburban. Like, dude, I got great gas. That's my best gas mileage car. Most families, that's the worst.
You know why, though? I'll tell you why. You got to remember, you have to take into account, I have all foreign vehicles that only take premium.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, they're not great on gas either. They're big motors. They're high performance motors.
Yeah.
So I have a vehicle that takes regular gas, and as you know, it's quite a bit different if you find the right gas stations. And I don't drive that much that I concern myself with it. I mean, I take trips to California, but I can run on a tank of gas all week. Now, unfortunately, Angie driving a G-Wagon or some of the other things, it's not as efficient. So when I talked about, hey, we've talked about this for a while with the Suburban. We tried ordering it last year.
Couldn't.
It wasn't available. It wasn't even on the website. So now they just launched the Suburban with a diesel motor, which, what's the gas mileage going to be?
I mean, I have the same engine in a truck. And I mean, if you go 70, you'll get, I don't know, about 30.
Yeah. So, and plus I like the whole, the dimension of it now. I think it's a little better. It's like I don't know if I'll ever go back to a gas engine. I prefer the diesel engine. You helped me actually order that vehicle, so
you've been wanting it for a while.
Plus we got a white one, which I have black right now. It's a little better with the Vegas heat. But
you're gonna have like 10 cars.
No, the Tesla though is something that we've talked about.
Yeah,
and we just talked about it. It makes a great local vehicle. I'm not trying to drive it back and forth to California.
Yeah.
But I think that would be the great running vehicle, and I want to try it. Everyone talked about the Teslas and how great they are, and there are a lot of charging stations.
when we were in Denmark 2 years ago?
We
drove and we had to pull over and charge it.
Yeah,
we had to pull over.
We did.
Don't you remember? We got so we get in the Tesla and they take us to this thing and they drive it on a boat and they take us on this huge ship across some place. And we
went
do
to
this
an appearance there,
and he went and charged. The guy that drove us went and charged it while we were at the appearance.
Okay.
So we had to drive all the way around, and we got a certain distance away, and he had to pull over and back it in, and it was some supercharger, and in like 20 minutes, he got like 50 miles charged out of it.
Okay.
And that was the rest of the way to get us back.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about it. I mean, we know a lot of people that have Teslas, and
they're like stupid fast too. That's why you really want it. You can tell the truth.
Because I mean, listen, I have fast vehicles. I don't even go that
You don't got
fast.
something that goes 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds though. So we got the Arnold Classic coming up. That's actually this week. I'm flying out Wednesday. I'm going to get in late Wednesday night, and I'll be there.
I won't be at this one this year. I'm in a wedding on Saturday, so
yeah, normally it's in March, and you were already in this wedding, so. But we're going into the Arnold Classic, and I think this is going to be one of the best Arnold Classics for a couple reasons. One, it's 2 weeks before the Olympia, so you're going to get a lot of guys that are top guys that are doing it. Outside of Rami and Brandon and Hadi, the top three from top three got 3 of the top 5. most of the other top guys are in it. And I think you're going to have a chance for some of the up-and-comers to literally make a name for themselves or get some crazy momentum going into the Olympia. Maybe one of these guys that are doing this show could leapfrog and be in that first call out now on the at the Olympia.
All right, so it looks like there's 11 guys in the show.
Yeah, some people dropped out. Rolly Winkler dropped out. Cedric dropped out because of his hand, and what's his name from France? He said he had visa
Lionel
issues. Lionel Bayecki. He dropped out. That's why I put their name on the list. So I put a list on here in alphabetical order, and we'll go over each person, and you can just kind of give your feedback on each one of these guys and what you think their chances are, and then you don't have to, unless you want to give a prediction or whatever. You don't have.
I hate predictions. I always thought it was disrespectful.
It's so. I mean, you can kind of say these are the guys that are fighting for the title, but. You know this. Anything in 5 minutes, you can go from being first to fifth. There's so many variables.
Yeah, listen, I know, but number one, William Bonnick is on your list.
William Bonnick. This is in alphabetical order. So William Bonnick is the top person on here. What do you think?
He's won it. He's
the last two.
Yeah, and he is. I have to say one thing about William is he is the closest thing to Phil Heath as far as muscle roundness and pop. So when he poses, a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
Now, I think he got overlooked last year at the Olympia, in my opinion. You might have a different vision of that. But I think he is definitely in the driver's seat to win this contest again. I know his confidence is super high. I think he's in his own now. I've known him since he started. And I believe he was a 212 guy.
He was.
And, he's found his place. He's a little shorter, but he is round, and he gets in great shape, and I'm sure he's going to – when you have that much muscle, it's
you can't put any more muscle on that.
It's easy to get into condition. It's just he needs to be on point, and he wins another one.
Yeah. On paper, he should
On
go
paper,
in and
he
win.
is the winner. He would be – if you asked me right now who I would pick to win, it would definitely be William Bonnick.
Yeah. Because he's done it, and he's one of the top guys.
He's been second at the Olympia, know.
So next, Max Charles.
Yeah, I mean, he was third one year.
Yeah.
He was third at the Arnold one year, and he's been improving all along. I don't know. He's done a lot of contests, though.
He has.
And his legs have improved. He's got crazy upper body, great arms. I mean, his midsection.
Milos is his coach now.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. He's improving. His back's getting better. I just don't know if he'll fight for a top position here because there's just a lot of powerhouses. But he's always in shape, and he's always impressive, that's for sure.
Sung Chu Lee.
Yeah, training in Vegas.
Yeah.
We just shot him for the channel, actually.
Again?
Yep, and he was impressive at the Olympia last year,
He was.
Definitely needs a little more lower body, but big arms, big upper body. He's from Korea, which, he represents, a huge bodybuilding community. He's definitely making his mark, and I'm really happy to see that he's been over here training and working to, increase his popularity and throwing his hat into this contest because, he has a big following, man. He did really well, and we got a great reception from him, and I expect big things from him in the future.
He's one of those guys.
He's an up and coming,
We saw him at the Olympia last year. We didn't really know who he was.
Didn't know who he was.
We were like, I don't know who this guy is, but
great shape
for how round he is, and he's got all the tools to do very well.
Yeah.
Mohammed Elaman.
Listen, he came on the scene this year like crazy, right? I mean,
I actually thought he could have won the show in Cali. He
could have. Lower body is definitely overpowering but he has really come on in great shape. I felt that he was second at a couple of those shows that, he got there, I believe, on points. I don't think he's won actually a contest to get there to the Mr. Olympia, but he's qualified at this point, and he looks amazing.
Yeah, Steve Kuklo.
Man, this guy has been at it a long time. I mean, I remember him when he was a teenager, and I think he's been third or fourth at this contest, and he was sixth at the Olympia. I think the last time we competed. But what I'm going to say about Steve is, we saw him lose to Ian a few weeks ago, and it was close. You were at that contest. He's got the size. He just needed to be dialed in. And I think if he was dialed in, he probably would have won that competition.
If he was dialed in.
He's got the size. He's got the structure.
He doesn't have weaknesses.
He really doesn't. And I know the downside is separation with him because he's so round and so full. But I feel that he is going to be improved. I feel he's going to be a little lighter and tighter. And he's done well here. And I just, with the shoulder width, and, the round muscle, he's definitely going to be someone you can't overlook. I expect him to push the top spots. I mean, he could be a winner at this contest pretty easily.
I was going to say, if he had the condition if his condition was equal to Bonnick, he would win because he's just bigger.
Yeah,
and he
would.
would.
And he's got great shape.
Yes, great shape and he's he's probably the tallest guy in the show. He's over 6 feet.
6'1", yeah.
So next, Hassan Mustafa.
Man, this guy just keeps coming. I don't know how many. He's done every single contest.
Almost, yeah.
And he's improving. I think, you can't overlook his muscle. So he's definitely not going to be, I don't think, in the first or second place position, but he could be anywhere in between because he's got so much muscle and he's got good enough condition. I just think he needs to get still a little tighter from the backside, but you cannot put an ounce of more muscle on this guy. I mean, he's the biggest guy pound for pound on that stage.
Muscular human being I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. And he has to diet really hard to get into condition, I think. And he's been on an all-year diet. Another guy coming from overseas that's been training here in Vegas.
He's an Egyptian.
Yeah, he's just unbelievable potential, and we're just waiting to see this. I feel he is like the unspoken Rami. Like, he's the guy that we're just all waiting for to nail it.
It's the same thing, yeah. When he nails it,
it's lights out for everyone because he has everything. He's not really missing body parts, but it's just about bringing in that condition and the separation that's going to separate him from the top spots.
Sergio Oliva Jr.
Big things from Sergio. I think, he was fourth his last time here. Had some off-season difficulty getting, he committed to a couple events, didn't make it. I think last year he really wanted to be in Olympia.
Australia.
Yeah, so for him, he looks very, very impressive right now.
He looks humongous.
Yeah, he looks huge. I mean, I would pick him to be in the top 4 for this competition. And I don't know he's gonna push out, but I mean, he was 5th last time. He was here, I think, 5th place. I think 4th or 5th. I think.
5th. Yeah.
I think Kuklo beat him the last time.
Kuklo got 4th and he got 5th.
And I think that...
And the guys that are ahead of him outside of Bonnick are not there.
Yeah, so he's had some time off. He's massive, and he is pretty balanced. I mean...
Have you got any updates?
I haven't seen any updates, but, it doesn't matter anyway. I mean, we just saw the picture of him stand next to Rami and Dennis James, and he looks gigantic.
Yeah, I think Sergio... I think he's going to be the one that's going to kind of shock people. I think this could be the show where he comes out. I don't make predictions either, but I expect him to be one of those guys rotated in that number 1 spot because they're going to move 3 or 4 guys around, and I expect him to be one of them. Justin Rodriguez.
Last year's hype guy. I mean, he definitely came on the scene last year. He was, pushing. He almost won a couple. I think he did win something last year in order to.
I think he qualified on points last year.
Well, he was second.
He won Indiana.
Yeah, and he really, really put it together, and came on the scene. I know I had a conversation with him, and he wasn't going to do the Mr. Olympia last year, and unfortunately he did. And which I think it was great for him to get the experience.
He got 10th. Yeah. So
I think he was probably happy about that. I think anyone that has that chance to go to the Mr. Olympia should never turn it down because it's you just never know what's going to happen.
You actually did it once too.
Yeah,
and turned it down in 2002.
I probably could have won it. So for me, I think that he definitely he needed to improve his legs a little bit, and I think that depending on how he nails it here, I mean, he's got the crazy shape, he's got crazy back double bicep. I mean, very similar to Victor Martinez a lot, very wide shoulders. But we'll see, with this lineup, we get some mass monsters in there that, if they come in condition, it's, it's definitely, he's more aesthetic than he is a mass monster, in my opinion.
Yeah. Ian Bellier.
Yeah, impressive. He's one of the outbreak guy of this year.
Could he win this show?
He could. I think he could. I think it's going to be a little difficult against some of the vets. I mean, he was 7th at the Olympia last year. Bonnick still edged him out. And like I said, I think Bonnick was overlooked. But, he definitely is on a good run right now and great. He brings great condition. You said he looked amazing at the Texas show. I expect big things from him, and he trains like an animal, and he's going to be improved. So I expect him to be pushing those top spots too.
I think he's going to be one of the guys that's rotated in that top 4 spot.
Okay.
Nick Walker.
Everybody's hero, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in touch with us. We know how he looks. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate thing about a prediction about Nick is, like, he said he's winning it. Mm-hmm. You know, he told us both he was going to win this show and he was going to go to the Olympia. And I truly believe he thinks he can win the Mr. Olympia. Mm-hmm. And I was the same way. You know, the confidence is there. But it's kind of funny. You don't want to hate on the guy because, like,
he believes in himself.
He believes in himself, and he's not being arrogant. He's not trying to put anyone down and saying, well, I'm going to win because so-and-so doesn't have this or so he doesn't talk about anyone else. He just looks at, this is my physique, and I don't have to tear anyone apart in order to tell you that I'm going to beat those guys. He just lets his body do the talking, and I think he's fixed a lot of his so-called flaws. Like, he's able to hide some of his weaknesses, and he's in crazy condition. He's got a hell of a lot of muscle. Some of his shots are just knockout. And listen, man, I think it would be the most amazing story ever if he came in and won this competition.
Yeah.
And he's young and he's hungry and he works his ass off. And I love that. You know, I'm cheering for him for sure.
Yeah. He's a guy that could, I wouldn't know where to place him yet because
he hasn't been compared.
We haven't seen him. Yeah. We saw him in Chicago where he, you know, and obviously he's improved since then. We saw him at New York, but we haven't seen him where he's in between 2 elite guys. What he looks like.
Did he win Chicago or?
He got, I think, 5th.
Okay,
that was his
right.
pro
4th
debut.
or 5th, yeah.
Akeem Williams won that show.
That's right.
And then he did New York, and you know Justin Rodriguez was there, but it wasn't a stacked lineup. You know, now he's going to have if he's in a first call out, you got 5 or 6 elite guys there. So we've never seen him next to someone like that. So I'm more excited to see, okay, what does he look like if he's in between an Akeem and an Ian or next to William because they're similar height? You know, what does he look like now? So I wouldn't even want to predict he'll be somewhere between first and last. I don't want to predict it because once we see him here and then we see him at the Olympia going into next year, now you can say, well, I've seen him in between Hadi and Rami. He held his own in 6 or 7 shots. He's got to make these improvements. So then you can know where to kind of predict.
Yeah.
I legit don't know where he could place. Could he win it? Yeah. Could he get 5th or 6th? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm assuming he's going to be in that front pack, but we have to see what he looks like next to some of these other guys. Since he's, like you said, he's improved and he's learned how to hide certain weaknesses, but he's going to be the talk of the show. And he's still, what is he, 25? He's still young, 25 or 26.
Yeah.
And the last one, Akeem Williams.
Yeah. Most dangerous guy on the stage.
I think so too.
Because he's big. He's got shape.
He's got that grainy
He was
density.
6th last year at the Olympia. He's won a show already.
He won the Bahamas.
Yeah. Is that the only show he did?
He just did one show. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was going to do Chicago. And then
you know, definitely, you know, he's improved a lot. His back's improved, his legs. I mean, he's just, everything is just, the conditions come in, you know, full circle. We'll see how he shows up. But I mean, he is another guy. I'm looking at this list, and I mean, I'm going to go down and I say William Bonnet can win it. Steve Kucalo can win it. Sergio could win it. Ian Valier, Nick Walker, and Akeem can all win it.
6 guys could win this show.
Not to put these other guys down, but these guys all could be front runners. But if I was to be a betting man, I say Bonnet has the best shot.
Probably
Akeem for sure.
And Sergio, in my opinion.
Sergio. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to hold out Walker and Ian either. You know,
Kucalo.
Yeah, Kucalo. Yeah,
he
I mean,
beat Sergio last year.
I mean, these guys are all powerhouses. So I mean, it's going to be exciting to hear the results. So you're going to have to let me know.
Yeah, I'm
going to try to watch the if they have a live broadcast. I don't know if they're having one or not, but
yeah, for sure they are. Because so this year at the Arnold, there's no expo, so they're just doing 4 classes. They're doing bodybuilding, they're doing a classic, bikini, and fitness, and they're just doing it's a 1-day show. They're going and doing prejudging, coming back at night, doing the night show. And if I remember right, I'm forgetting his. I think Amanda Latona, Dennis James. I want to say, I'm forgetting the other, maybe Terry Crews and Arnold are doing the commentary.
Okay.
Arnold's going to do the commentary, which is kind of cool because we've never seen him do it. You know what I mean? I'm sure he'll go out, but at some point he's going to come back and join the commentary. So I'm looking forward to it. So are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, I hope you got some good ones here.
All right. We'll see here. What advice would you give to my 11-year-old son? He wants to go to the gym with me every day and do the same machines I do. What's your opinions on youngsters working out?
Listen, they had this biggest, thing against kids lifting weights at a young age. I think, lifting light weights is okay. I would keep the reps a little higher, and I would show them the correct form. But don't let them try to push 1 or 2 rep maxes.
Especially 11-year-old.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. But listen, it keeps them active, and you never know where it's going to be. I mean, I picked up interest to bodybuilding when I was 12, so you just, do it the right way and give them the right positioning, and remember, keep the reps a little higher. That's all.
Big J, which is better when cutting down, casein or isolate proteins?
It's a great question.
Slow release or fast release protein?
Listen, I think, depending on what time, they say casein is better at night because it's slower digesting. But if I was, to put my money, I would have an isolate protein. I'd buy Total ISO. I'm going to give myself a plug here for Cutler Nutrition. But listen, it's always been one of my things. I've used protein powders to get ready for contests. And I've used I've used casein, I've used, a blend, I've used, isolates. But I don't really know if your body really knows the difference. But definitely if I was cutting down, I would try to get the cleanest one with the less amount of sugar and fillers and everything in it. So that's why I focus on an isolate in this era today. We didn't have as advanced proteins back then.
No. How would you feel about training after 11 p.m.? I know you're an advocate for those midnight sessions. I work a second shift type of schedule, and morning workouts are good, but I feel like my training would be better after 11.
Hey, whatever works. As long as you can get the food in before and after, and if your body is feeling responsive at that time, there's no clock that, your body doesn't know the clock unless, it's on a sleep pattern or whatever. We've trained at all different times, and I was usually a late night trainer. Like I trained best after, 4 or 5 meals. So if you're, getting your meals in at work and you feel the energy to go to the gym, get it done, man. It's as long as it's productive, it's successful.
Which place in the world would be a good place to hold the Mr. Olympia that hasn't had it in the past? Remember how the Olympia used to rotate all over the world?
So other than the USA?
Yeah, just which place in the world? Is there a spot that you think, man, if it was there, it might be they'd crush it?
Dude, any place. Think about all the places we've gone. Think about the Mr. Olympia in Australia. How many fans would come out?
It'd be anywhere.
It'd be successful. Think about it in Spain.
Yeah. I was at the Arnold in Spain, and there was, God, it had been 100,000
Yeah,
people. What about Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil would be crazy.
Brazil,
How about the Middle East?
Dubai,
Yeah.
Kuwait, they show in Kuwait. You could legit do it anywhere. You could imagine if you put it in Beijing or Shanghai.
Yeah, it's just, New York City, I felt like was always a great spot too. It is expensive to host it there, but like before the pandemic, I think New York was like, man, that's when they had it at Madison Square Garden.
That was the last, 98?
Yeah, but Vegas is still the king, man.
Yeah.
Vegas is, not just because I live here, but there's a reason the biggest UFC fights are here and some of the biggest boxing
It's the
matches.
entertainment capital of the world.
Like the Raiders game was the most viewed. They said since, I don't know what, it broke records as far as people watching the Raiders game for Monday night, the opening night. It was crazy.
Let's see. Jay, how have you dealt with injuries through the years, and what do you think is key to longevity from a bodybuilding
Tissue
perspective?
work, stretching, taking care of your body, hydration. We talked about water. Staying pliable. Remember, a flexible muscle is going to expand more. And I think that, the harder the muscles get, the harder they work. So you need to keep everything flexible, pliable, and, just take care of your body. But hydration is super, super important. Someone like you that doesn't drink enough, you need to drink.
My arms are an extreme weak point. Should they still be trained at least once a week for 40 sets, like you've mentioned, in the 12 to 15 rep range, or more often than
I think
once
twice a week. I would just do different exercises. I would, focus on 12 to 15 reps or 20 reps, depending. But I would definitely focus on different movements in order to stimulate. If your body does get used to the same thing too much. So I would definitely, try to switch it around. And ideally, if you had a different gym to train at with different types of equipment, and, that's the kind of the universal thing today is there's so many different machines. You're not just limited to bicep curls with dumbbells or barbells or cables. There's a lot of different variation machines now that, can kind of simulate all those free weight movements that give you a different type of resistance and angle.
For your prep heading into a competition, at any point did you have any problem fat storage or watery areas that you had to deal with? And what did you find worked best for you?
Hell yeah, my lower back. So I would saran wrap around my midsection, use some preparation H on there. I talked about that, put a belt on, and I would do the stairs that way, and I would just try to flush that water out. I don't really know if it works, but definitely holding that heat in, it's going to help chew away at those fat cells. But there's nothing better than good old-fashioned hard diet and combined with cardiovascular. And, fish was definitely one of the proteins that I ate, because fish definitely
Orange
it works.
Roughy,
It works better with keeping your insulin levels down. And you want to have your insulin levels a little lower so you can tap into body fat and it doesn't spike up and cause storage.
And the last question was actually from Matt Jansen. He messaged it. How did Jay saved and invested his money, and when did he start to prioritize it?
Oh man, I started early, man. I started at 17. Listen, I always had good advisement. I always had the fear of being broke. I mean, we talked about that. So, I was able to, I would have to give the most credit to, number one, I had a great business mentor named Bruce Vartanian. When I first started on, I used to mention him in the magazines, and he was kind of a real estate guy, and he did heating, air conditioning, and he was always talking about how to save money, and things will come later in life, but just be smart. He helped me negotiate contracts. And then it transitioned. When I was able to go to California, there was this accountant who still is my accountant, that was very, very he knew a lot about how to work financially and save as an athlete, because he worked with athletes, and that's who actually pushed me to go to Las Vegas. And I started putting money away, and did defined benefit plans and IRAs, and which some people question, but it helps with deference of tax dollars, and then of course pushed me towards the real estate investment. Chris Aceto was a big influence on that. Was able to make a lot of money.
Everyone thinks that Chris Aceto is just a diet guy.
No,
he's
he taught me
real estate guy.
He taught me about real estate, and that was kind of my jump in Las Vegas. And I started just getting in and buying a lot of properties here, and I was able to flip things, make some money, invest it, and just kept rolling into different areas. And to this day, I mean, I still look at deals every day. But I think for me, I never had debt after a certain point that I couldn't handle. I mean, everyone has debt, right? They always take loans or whatever. I mean, if you can borrow money and it's good money, that's the smartest thing I suggest to do. But at the same time, you have to have an interest in what you do. Otherwise, it's not going to be as successful. And that's why, I've got into supplements, and, I've gotten involved with the things that I do. I mean, because I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it. And, the bodybuilding, I was able to make a great living with it. But I never lived beyond my means. I remember I would budget, even in the beginning, eating out once a week. And that transitioned, obviously, into greater things. But at the same time, I still live on budgets, where I could go out and buy anything I really wanted, but I don't go beyond a certain point. And with me, you learn that as you transition through life, also things become less important, and you put time and effort towards other things. So I think for me, I always live like I'm broke, if that makes sense. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I always make that joke, because I never wake up in the morning and think, oh, I made it. I always say, okay, I got to get further ahead. You know, it's all about building the brand and just continuing to strive and really just, you know, looking at, you know, what I started at. And I think that's like the fear of being broke. It's like the fear of losing to Mr. Olympia. It's the fear of being not a great bodybuilder, or the fear of so-and-so coming up and beating you. I don't care what anyone says. I always might have said, like, hey, I'm only concerned with myself. I was always concerned about everyone around me, even the last place guy. And I think, you know, for me, you know, keep yourself humble, but at the same time, like, you got to have a little balls to do some things sometimes.
Yeah.
So, like, at certain times in my life, like, I'm a little more resistant, because even like right now, I'm not like jumping on opportunity. I'm kind of waiting to watch things, and once I'm ready to go, I'll pull the trigger. You know, I just kind of found that rhythm, and I've just kind of kept that going all along. And, you know, for me, it's like, you know, I don't know really what I wake up every day, and if I didn't have something to strive for, I would be bored out of my mind. You know, I'm retired from bodybuilding, so I'd have to find the next best thing. So that's why it's been kind of cool to, you know, focus on the business side and chase, you know, different things that I want to get involved in. And, you know, in 10 years, I expect to be involved in 10 other things.
You'll still be broke.
Still be broke, yeah. I think that's our question every day. So, you know, always push yourself, but at the same time, never be satisfied.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, and I think it's the good way to end it, is that, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm never satisfied. I never was when I was a bodybuilder, and to this day, I'm still not.
And, you know, even for me, sometimes like sometimes I think about just taking a vacation, and I feel like,
well, we talked about this today.
yeah, like I feel like if I do, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating myself, or like just the littlest things. I feel like I always have to be doing something that is progressing me. And I know it's not healthy to always, that's all I know, but I have to, you know, I need to learn how to like slow down a little bit and go, hey man, I have came a long ways. I can still enjoy it without realizing I'm still not where I want to be.
See, if you were an influencer or someone like me, like, that's the cool thing about being a brand, is like, you make money no matter where you go. So like, I can go to Puerto Rico, or I can go to Dubai. More than likely, I'm going to go and make some sort of revenue because I'm there, and I think, okay, I'm going. Why don't I meet up and do a meetup or do a gym appearance, whatever. But at the same time, I can film Instagram, or I can film YouTube, and indirectly that will somehow build the brand, right? Because people will see they're interested in it. That's what interests people.
Yeah.
Like, we sit and do this podcast, and like, people want to know the insight, because they can watch the videos I mentioned. Go on YouTube and watch, you know, Cut Above and, you know, All Access. I didn't talk. So I was most resistant on camera until now, and that's what people love. So, you know, you can talk about like successes and everything else. You know, people want to know what type of person. And that's what's going to build more fan base and people to follow us, because it's relatable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are introverts, and a lot of people are scared to step out of their comfort zone. And here we are, you know, I had to beg you to do this. I had to beg you to get on a camera. I had to beg you to get on a microphone and tell a little bit. And there's so much more to tell, which is really cool. And that's why I'm excited for the more episodes. And, you know, that's our wrap for episode 7. And, you know, we'll have some pretty cool stuff for episode 8. So we appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, and please comment on this video, because this is what is going to build this thing beyond. And we appreciate all the amazing responses. We're trying to get to 10,000 subs.
Should we do some type of giveaway if there's X amount of comments? You think this one can get up to, let's see, you were asking for what, 500 on the JTV one? You said if it gets 500, should we do half of it, see if we can get 250? If we do 250, we'll pick somebody.
I'm going to pick someone, and I'm going to sign a Jay Cutler signature belt. I think that's a good item.
Yeah, that's a great item.
So I'm going to sign. I have the leather Jay Cutler belt, and I'm going to give that away, and I'm going to sign it personally to our winner.
Yes.
And I'm going to send you a Jay Cutler belt. So I think we hit 300.
300.
I want 300 comments, and 300. I don't want the comments to just be like,
no, legit comments.
Like, talk about, hey, you know, maybe some questions, what you would like to hear, know about.
How about this? The best question, that you find the most interesting,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give them, we'll give them the belt. As long as there's 300 comments, the best question.
And we'll
we'll
shout out
feature
the
it.
person's name.
Yes.
We'll feature the name, and we're actually going to
Because
we'll
somebody's going to ask something. You're like, damn, no one's ever asked me
Yeah.
that.
So I'm gonna sign the belt on the next one, and I'm gonna give it away to that person. So
Perfect. And we're out.
So appreciate it.